Good morning and welcome to the FloTrack podcast. It is Friday, June 5th, 2020. My name is Lincoln Shrike, joined today by Gordon Mack. We thought this was going to be a show where we were going to simulate the women's side of the 2020 NCAA Outdoor Championships. But some news came over the wires quickly that's going to push that back to next week. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, Gordon, how are you doing today?
I just think it is wild that we can go, what, 3.5, 3 months? How many months has it been? 3 months of no
Yep.
competition yet, and we're doing a daily podcast to try to have things to talk about. Yet we are still have like that, but we can still find breaking news, and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that one of the great, I guess technically you could her performance was one of the greatest performances of all time in the 400, running number 3 time ever. Now that she is provisionally suspended, I think it's just crazy how even with no track, we still find things that happen in the track world.
Yeah, of course, we're
So,
talking about
but that's
Salwa
just
Eid
the media
Naser.
person. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just
we're
the
talking about
media
Salwa
me
Eid
talking.
Naser at Bahrain, provisionally suspended today by the Athletics Integrity Unit for 3 whereabouts failures. As is typical of these types of announcements, we're a little short on details. We don't know if it was missed test or filing failures or a combination of both. But the short point here is that the reigning 400-meter world champion, who ran 48:14 in Doha last fall to be the third fastest woman ever, could be facing a 2-year suspension. We'll hopefully find out more details in the coming days about what exactly this entails. But yeah, to your point, we've had a few of these whereabouts announcements. This is in the last few months, and this is by far the highest profile one. And you think, well, everyone should be, you know, crossing their T's and dotting their I's here because they're at home. They're not going anywhere. They're not competing. What excuse do you have to be missing tests? We don't know when these happened. They could have been dating back to last year. That's typically how this works. When we look back to a few weeks ago with Gabby Thomas and some of those athletes, I know for Thomas's situation, it was dating back to the 2019 season. So there's reason to believe that these missed tests or filing failures, whatever they are, the whereabouts failures, are related to the 2019 season. And if that is the truth, and it puts her massive 2019 season, which culminated in that 48:14, under a giant cloud of suspicion. I remember being in Doha and she won and she ran that spectacular time, and everyone was asking her about placed her in the proximity of the two women above her. Of course, the two women above her, not kind of, but Eastern Bloc countries, and they had run their times in the 1980s. I'm talking about Marita Koch and Jarmila Krachavilova, who ran 47. They're the only two women to ever run 47 seconds. And her association or close proximity with them generated questions like, what do you think about, do you think you're the actual world record holder? Because look at these women and the suspicion there. Now to have suspicion about her, it obviously puts that outlier performance under a massive cloud of suspicion. She had been good before. This isn't a situation where she came out of nowhere, but she had never broken 49 seconds. And so to go from 49 low to a 48:14 was a massive jump. We can't necessarily make the leap to say, well, she's a doper for sure, but this does not look good for her at all.
Yeah, man. I feel like everyone and their mom is getting these whereabout failures. I mean, we even had someone as marquee as Christian Coleman get a whereabout failure, which eventually was able to kind of figure a way out technicality to not have it held against him. And, we're kind of just like, oh, we'll just pretend that never happened.
Yeah.
But like, it's just so weird because a whereabout failure is not a positive test. It's just like, it's this weird different thing where like you can never, like, a positive test, you can never defend it. You could be like, oh, I didn't know it was in that thing. Well, who cares? You didn't know. Even if you took it accidentally, it was in your system and there was a chance that it helped you. But a
Right.
whereabout failure, like there could be a chance that you literally are just made a mistake that has nothing to do with enhancing your body, and now for the rest of your career, that mistake, even if you're 100% clean and all that stuff, is just always going to be held against you. And it kind of sucks. It kind of ruins your career in a weird way, unless we're able to find some story to able to kind of justify it. I mean, a lot of times, whereabout failures, the way we react to them is all based on the type of athlete that committed the whereabout failure. I think we're
Mm,
big on forgiving some and not others, and kind of using this as a justification for other, like, you know, thoughts, like you said, like, or other like assumptions, like you said, after she ran this 48.14, almost a full second faster than their previous personal best, and that she's so close to other to athletes who have some suspicion around them. It creates suspicion around her, whether she
yeah.
deserved that suspicion or not. I mean, you can't tell her, hey, don't run too fast, because if you run too fast, we're not going to like it. But now the whole whereabouts thing, it just like blows it even up more. And everyone wants to have a reason to not believe what they see. And now we have that reason. And it's kind of sad because I like to always think, the best in people, unless there's actually a positive test. And when I hear whereabouts failures, my first thought isn't, oh, yep, she's a cheater, or she's a doper, or he's a doper. I just think, like, damn it, like, now we just got to go through this circus, like, you know,
Yeah.
because it's like, it's a lot. I don't know. I just,
The thing is, though,
to me,
it's
I
not
think whereabout
one.
failures should not be considered doping like violations, in my opinion, for some
Oh,
weird
no, no,
reason. I
no,
don't
no. If
know.
it no, that's a bad take. No, because if it wasn't, you would have people never listing where they were. There would be so many excuses for missing tests. No, you get three chances here. So I I'm surprised that there isn't more criticism on this. And I understand, Christian Coleman kind of got past, and his example got past the whereabouts failures that he was accused of, and there was some allegation of it being like a technicality type of a situation, and there were some strange details there, so kind of we apply that logic to everything here. But you get three chances here in a year period, okay? And that's why this isn't a one strike and you're out situation. So when you get one and when you get two, you're notified. So you got to know this is where I'm going to be, and so you can use that convenient excuse. Well, they compete all over the world. They're busy. That I think that's sort of an excuse. And yes, she deserves some level of the benefit of the doubt here. But I'm just saying, when you combine the factors of running a time that hasn't been seen in 30 plus years, and then all of a sudden you're coming up for a whereabouts failure, I don't think those things are, you can't look at those and just be like those are pure coincidence. There's a chance it is, but more likely than not, I feel like something is going on here. And we'll be waiting to see what Naser says. Obviously she would have known about this well in advance of what we're hearing today. But so far we have no announcement from her. I do want to point out something, and John Galt on Twitter, he noted something important here. He reached out to Naser's agent, who's Juan Pineda, who also represented former half marathon world record holder Abraham Kiptum, busted, and two other athletes who have been banned for doping. Now, does that necessarily mean Naser is doing that? No, but it doesn't look good. And interesting to me, Pineda, who you would think would be on top of this as her agent, told John Galt, "You have more information than me." Apparently, John Galt broke the news to Salwa Eid Naser's agent. How in the world is that possible? How would an agent not know about this?
Oh, I can
You
tell you why, because track and
you
oh, okay.
they would they would have like this. It's not like this. Just Naser is finding out today. They would have been notified of this days and weeks in advance. This is preposterous that he would not know this. This is an absolute mess. This strikes me as there's just way too many red flags here. Way too much suspicion with the agent. We know the history when agents have athletes, you rack up a few athletes that have been dirty, you start to realize that this is an agent that is very short on morals. And when that happens, usually the athlete, it just creates more and more suspicion and reason to doubt the athlete. I don't know. There's a lot of red flags here, Gordon.
I had two thoughts when you said that. How can the agent not know? And I had two thoughts. One, they could not know because they want to play dumb to the media to be like, oh, I'm just finding this out. Like, she's so guilty, we didn't even know about it. Which now when you really think about it, well, they don't announce a doping. They tell you this happened, and then they wait time before they actually tell the public. So clearly you would have known. But then also there's the idea of track and field agents are not like the same type of agents in the NBA, NFL, and baseball and all that stuff.
A lot of track and field agents, they're bad at their job. They're bad at their job.
Yeah, well, our sport doesn't require an agent to be so on top of their job. I mean, because track and field agencies are kind of just like, depends on who it is. I mean, the whole purpose, I think, of an agent is mainly just ensuring in the early parts of your career that you can get into a Diamond League event. Like, they are the ones who make sure whether, you're coming off injury or just like vouches for you or uses another athlete in their system. Like, say you share an agent with Usain Bolt and you're not that good yet, that agent will say, we'll give you Bolt if you give me my up and coming athlete. And then that's how you get your opportunities to go. Because you'd be like, who are you? But when you're attached to an agent, the meet director says, okay, well, you're giving me Usain Bolt, so you can take Shamir Little or something like that, whatever. Like early on, right? Because all these international meet directors aren't really keen in on the SEC champion, type thing, the way we are in America. So that's, I think, the main purpose of a lot of agents. But now that you say that the agent played dumb to John Galt, is a big red flag.
We don't know that that's exactly what happened. I mean, we can assume that he had some understanding of this, unless she just is ghosting her agent. And that makes it, either way, it's more suspicious. If you're not in contact with your agent at all, I mean, who else are you not in contact with? And then if he's acting like he doesn't know, that's suspicious on him. I mean, it's bad either way.
Yeah. The more and more we dive into this situation, the more and more I'm leaning towards this is a big, big red flag. I just always, whenever I hear Whereabout Failures, I know you disagree with this. I think that humans are more likely to just like, this is my question to you. You might know more. I'm not really as educated on how, say someone wants to dope and the process of how it works. Clearly, doping isn't every day you wake up and you eat 2 steroid pills for 365 days. Like, that's not how doping works, right? Or it's not like a daily
I've never doped, Gordon. I'll be honest, I've never doped. I mean, I think you're talking typically when you're trying to get away with something like this and you're knowing you might get tested, you're trying to microdose, you're trying to take it to where it's going to be out of your system by the time you get tested. So, of course, you can't take it 365 days a week. So it's not hey, have you taken your steroids yet today and make sure to wash it down with your Wheaties and milk so it doesn't upset your tummy. You do it with a little bit more caution and mindfulness than that, I think. But, maybe a confirmed doper can come on and let us know how it goes down. Or we can just watch Icarus because, the first half of that, he's trying to figure out how to dope. All right, go ahead.
Well, what I think is like when you have a Whereabout failure, what is so hard about, because sometimes you hear about these Whereabout failures where like you miss the window by like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah,
and then it's like, I doubt that athlete was like taking that extra 5 minutes to flush their system. Like, I think a lot of times is this like time window and it's like hey, like they call them like 15 minutes later. Oh, sorry, man, I was like in a movie. I'm so sorry. And they're like, sorry, nope, you missed the timeline. They're so harsh on like on the dot. Like you would think that like a tester would realize like giving them 15 minutes isn't really
But they're
gonna,
but they're given that they're given the heads up to where you need to be, they're given like an hour notice, I think. I could be mistaken there on the exact details, but it's not it's they are given, it's not like you need to be ready in the next like 2 minutes. It's like, I think that the athletes are provided a little bit of advance notice to where you need to be ready to go, and they always have to be updating where they are in the world. It's not, and so it's not just a situation where we randomly showed up at your house, we knocked on the door, you weren't there, and so you get a filing fail, you get a failure. No, it's not that ridiculous. I'm just saying, why does this happen? Because when it comes if you're doping, there's going to be much more leniency or support for the athlete if your anti-doping violation is a whereabouts failure, which leaves some room for the possibility that this is a clerical error or is a mistake, rather than just straight up taking that doping test and getting busted for it where it's clearly obvious that you were cheating. But this, where there's smoke there's fire typically, and you're pro, you can't do this. This is going to happen. That you're not going to want to just miss this because you're being lazy or like you're at the movies, and this screams of massive suspicion, because you can miss these tests and end up with this failure because of the fact that you're dodging tests because you're gonna test positive, and if your worst case scenario is I'm going to get a citation, but at least I didn't test positive. That's the thing, and maybe you have a chance to fight it in court. That's why this has to be an anti-doping thing on the level of, it's not on the level of testing positive, because it's a 2-year suspension as opposed to a 4. But that's why this is the thing, and that's why it's important. It's not just because we want to stalk athletes and know where they are at all times. It's because you can be doping and miss these tests, and so that's why this is incredibly suspicious and is on par with what we would see with a ban or with a doping positive.
Yeah, you're doing a good job at debating your point. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
like, cause
I understand. Yeah.
No, I'm agreeing a lot with what you're saying. Like, because I think about like, hey man, have I ever texted you and you've not seen the text after an hour since I sent the text? Maybe your phone was dead.
I mean, rarely. Rarely.
What if you
I
like
mean,
went for what? What if you went
yeah.
for a run and you just like leave your phone at home and you're out, training?
But I
Like,
think you're supposed to update the app. You're supposed to listen. You're supposed to have these things organized. This is your job, okay? And not only is it
that's
your
true.
job, it's a high profile job, okay? And you're representing your country, and if these Olympic medals and world championship medals are so important to you, this is a part of the job you got to take care of. So that means if you've got to live with a little bit less privacy than the rest of the population, then so be it, because you've got to show that you're clean. One other thing I want to point out, and it was pointed out on Twitter today by somebody named Edmund Willison, just to add a little bit more, a layer of why there's going to be some suspicion here, aside from maybe the typical or the usual whereabouts failure. His tweet here today: Naser's coach up until 2017 was the Bulgarian Yanko Bratanov. Sorry. One of his athletes who was caught for doping said Bratanov gave him steroids without telling him what they were. And he lists a article. He screenshots an article. In the athlete at the time said, every supplement I took was given to me by my coach. I was young, naive, and didn't know exactly what was given to me. He said I should trust him, no questions asked. Now, this is a entirely different athlete than Naser. I'm just saying there's going to be examples like this that come out that are not good looks for Salwa Eid Naser. So this is I don't know. There's been suspicion around her, and I don't know. This is not the Christian Coleman case. She deserves some benefit of the doubt, but I'm just saying this is why you missed tests, because you get the benefit of the doubt. Whereas just testing positive for EPO or whatever it would be, testing positive for a steroid, you don't get any benefit of doubt. That's why she would choose, I'm just going to miss these tests, or I'm going to have a filing mistake or whatever, because I know I'll be given the benefit of the doubt while I could still cheat. So that's why this is a violation, and that's why this is very suspicious. Now the question becomes, and we know this has been difficult throughout the years and forever in track and field, is it possible that she could get her world title stripped? And that becomes more difficult, but that will depend, of course, on when the whereabouts failures took place. And we just don't have that information right now.
Yeah, and if again, the more and more you're talking, Lincoln, the more and more I'm agreeing with you. Just so you know,
Shocking.
like
I'm surprised. I'm happy, but surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I came into this pod thinking like, oh, another whereabouts failure, another like just reason to have a gray cloud over someone's name. But the more and more you put things together, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence to kind of say that this is more than just a whereabouts failure, and that it is, like you said, you're laying down the case that it's more beneficial. Think about this. It is more beneficial to get a now more than any time it is beneficial to have a whereabouts failure, because there's not another track meet for a whole year, right? So like, oh, I'm suspended during a year where there's no track, like,
right.
Would she, I mean, if you're able to backdate it, could she be eligible for the Olympics?
That's a good question. I don't think so, because I mean, she wasn't. God, I have no idea. It gets into the nitty gritty details that I'm not exactly sure. I mean, the announcement of the suspension was today. I have no idea. I don't claim to know that answer. I've seen it. We've obviously seen that before, and where they get it backdated. So I mean, it's certainly possible, except for the fact that she competed. So I would say it could be the furthest it could be backdated. Obviously, if it goes through, would be it would be 2 years since her last competition of 2019, which was October 22nd. Ironically, she competed in Wuhan, which was the World Military Games she competed in after Doha last year. So that's the furthest you could go back. So no, she's still in line to miss the Olympics at even at best case scenario. So if anything, I mean, I think we're talking about her not competing at earliest as far as championships go would be the Eugene World Championship. So I mean, she could be in line to still defend her title, but that's best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, and if they do find a way to eventually strip her of that world title, the next athlete in line to get so Shawnee Miller-Weibo would move from second to first. Sharika Jackson of Jamaica will go to silver, and then American Waylon Jonathas will go from fourth to bronze.
And that's obviously exciting for American fans, and something to maybe put out a layer of hope. As we know, though, that it is so difficult and so drawn out to reallocate medals and to strip people, and to prove that has been so hard over the years. And even if it happens, I mean, Waddle Jonathas at best can hope to get her medal 5-7 years from now, if that's to happen. So I wouldn't hold your breath on that happening. It's not like she's getting FedExed a bronze medal next week. I mean, it's going to be a drawn out process where we find out when the mistests took place. We have no idea if her third mistest just happened last month. And so, we just don't know. She may have had 2 missed tests during the 2019 season, and then she just had another one. We've got to find out when those are. More details, which is a bummer. I mean, AAU does all this, drops this bomb on us, and then basically gives us no information. It's hardly even a press release at this point, which I'm not exactly sure why they do that. Maybe they're leaving it up to World Athletics to kind of walk through. I'm not exactly sure. but we need more info to know what exactly is going to happen here, because there's a lot at stake, not just for medals, but as far as the history of the women's 400 is up in the air right now. That performance was suspicious from the beginning, if we're being honest. I mean, that was so extraordinary. But when you add in the fact that now she's got to wear an anti-doping violation with the Whereabouts Failures, and a kind of her association in the past with some shady coaches, her agent has had multiple athletes banned for doping. I mean, it's not looking good to get into the duck scenario. If it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, or whatever, what is it typically? But what we shall see.
It's typically a duck.
Right. Yeah.
Man, where do we go?
Go ahead.
Where do we go from here, man? Like, cause I just want to have a track and field without all of this, like without all the it's too fast. It's probably something suspicious about that, and then 6-8 months later, you're like, yeah, that was suspicious, and like everyone just always has it just takes over the headlines. The whole Alberto Salazar stuff. This coach, that coach, this whereabouts for that. It becomes more and more about the catching of cheaters and less about the promotion and performances of incredible athletes.
No, that's been the sport. Yeah,
I know it's a sport,
just
but
part of the sport.
There's got to be a way to, I don't know. I mean, you don't hear about doping allegations in the NBA. Maybe because you don't need a dope to be great in the NBA, and I guess that's the.
Well, no, I think they keep some of that under wraps. Every sport has the joke around the NBA is like, look at the players that have been busted throughout the years. It's all low name, not high profile players. And I'm not saying LeBron James is doing something bad. We have no idea, but other sports have their own issues, and I think theirs being more popular sports and having more money at stake. They don't want all their top athletes getting busted all the time, and also theirs is more hand-eye. There's other. We look at track and field for the most part as not being necessarily a high skill sport. It's a fitness sport, right? And so when you're doing things that aid your fitness, all you're literally taking out any level of level playing field. It's just like you're making yourself better at the only aspect of the sport that matters. Whereas you could look at other sports and say there's other things there. That doesn't mean it's right to dope in football, basketball, baseball. And I think those sports should the drawback should be the backlash should be just as strong as it is in track. That's just not the way it is, though. Fans want to support their teams, and they'll forgive an athlete much quicker than we seemingly do in track and field, or maybe cycling, or a sport like that. But whatever the case may be, this is ever since I've been around, and obviously well before, dating back to the 70s, 80s, when drugs started to become much more prevalent in athletics. This has always been the case, where it's a big focus of the sport, big focus of the PR of the sport. Track really likes to dispute the notion that all news is good news, or all press is good press, or whatever, because, man, it gets a ton of negative press. I do want to emphasize, Naser is innocent until proven guilty. She'll have her day to, state her case, and this could get knocked down to a year. Or in the extraordinary case of Coleman's, it could get wiped out completely. I doubt that is to happen. This could get knocked down a year, however, and if it gets knocked down a year, it's June. She's going to be able to compete in the Olympics. So if she has a solid case, she assembles a good set of lawyers around her, very good chance she's in the Olympic Games next year.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's that's why I think about Whereabout Failures, right? And is that even people with positive tests, there's a whole thing about the type of beef. I mean, AJ Wilson, it's tainted beef, and I have this credit card receipt proving that I ate this tainted beef at this time after the Milrose games, and we kind of just compartmentalize these violations based off of whatever fits our story and narrative of like this whereabout failure happens to Naser, and she happens to be, a not as well known athlete who came up really quickly from, a non like Bahrainian, and she's born in Nigeria, but she's Bahrain, all this different things. And then like it's just you people liked, there is a little bit of a stereotyping, I think, to non affluent countries, or not fluent, but like non-Western countries.
Of
Whenever there's a
course.
doping violation among those athletes, it's all be like, yeah, you're third world country, so you probably did dope, because you don't know how to get ahead the normal way like us Westerners, which is not fair. And that's why whenever I hear whereabouts failures, it's just like based on wherever it's attached to, we kind of automatically just assume the worst for some and assume the best for others. I like to try to assume the best for all, but Naser,
Okay.
though, does have other outside flags that you brought up with the coach,
Yeah.
the agents, the associations, and the time that is so close to two other, questionable performances that it kind of trumps the stereotype in my mind. So
Okay. Now hold on. We
it
are
sucks.
getting more news. We're getting more
Oh,
news across the Twitter wires. Uh, a reporter I worked with actually in the World Championship mix zone, Evelyn Wada on Twitter. She just tweeted this quote tweet to the AIU tweet announcing this suspension. This is what she said: Salwa Eid Naser's manager Pineda says he received info from his athlete. She missed 2 tests in 2019. And then during her holidays in Nigeria early 2020, she missed a flight arriving late to her hotel. Anti-doping officials missed her at the hotel, producing her 3rd missed test. Now, if that is true, that to me, I mean, I could be wrong, but that takes the likelihood of a stripped. I could be wrong, but of a stripped medal makes it much more unlikely. I could be wrong there, but I that doesn't that makes me think that this is one got a great shot to get knocked down to just 1 year, if not completely knocked down. But also the likelihood that she gets stripped of a medal is, to me, much less likely. That being said, though, just missing 2 tests in 2019, a year where she ran 48-14, not a good look. And she'll need to have explanations for those things to get her penalty reduced.
yeah, no, but that third missed test, you think this is what I like about systems. Hey, my flight was delayed, and that's why I'm not there. They literally can open up their phone, see if she's lying, be like, oh yeah, their flight was delayed 3 hours. That's why she's literally not here. Okay, I will just come back in 3 hours. Like
Yeah.
that is the ultimate. Like you can prove that she can't. You're at the will of an airplane, right? You can't like control where you are in an airplane. So that's like the ultimate like proof that like you weren't trying to dodge a test, in my mind.
Yeah. We'll see. That's what she's saying, and like I said, we can believe her on her word right now. I still think missing the 2 tests. I remember when it was talking about when the Coleman reports were coming out. There were certain athletes saying like you'd have to be an idiot to miss 2 tests. Like, how does that happen? And I mean, I'm not using the word idiot is a strong word, obviously, and I don't mean it in that sense, calling these athletes idiots, but it's suspicious even for her to have done that, and knowing that she was on the bubble there, it at best it shows a level of recklessness that is concerning. And you know I don't know exactly. I know that these testing officials have things to do, and they say if you're going to be here, you need to be here at this time. But I would think that a delayed flight or whatever it was would or she missing a flight, I would think there would be some level, if that was true, if that was exactly what happened, and it was all with good intent, that there would be some level of forgiveness there. I don't know, man. That's what she's going to say, but she's going to need to provide more details there, because when I don't know, when you're sitting there with 2 misses already, I'm going to need better reasoning than that to just all of a sudden exonerate her.
Well, you don't. I mean, you can easily prove that. That's the thing. Like, flight records are just like
It's
not
not a
something.
delayed flight. It's not a delayed flight. She missed a flight, though. I mean, you could
Oh,
miss a flight
missed the
for.
flight.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry if I
that's
wasn't clear
different.
about that. Yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't a
because
delayed
delayed.
flight.
Oh, okay. So
I
you can
mean,
purposely miss a flight. So that's a little different.
yeah. I mean, we don't. Yeah, listen. I don't. We don't know exactly why. And again, innocent until proven guilty. Let's provide this athlete, the same amount of suspended. We'll suspend our disbelief or whatever just as much as we would for Christian Coleman or Gabby Thomas or Deja Stevens or whoever. Saying the association with an agent who's had a checkered past, a former coach who's had a checkered past. It's an extraordinary time, and 2 missed tests, and then a kind of a mysterious last violation. It's not a great day for Salwa Eid Naser. It's not a great day for the women's 400.
Yeah, I think after talking for 45 minutes now, 40ish minutes on this topic, I went in with a open mind, and I kind of am coming out with more of a closed-minded thought on this whole situation, that it is highly likely that she was doing something that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah,
And
I
again, that's
mean,
just an opinion, and obviously,
that's
I would never. You're always innocent until proven guilty. That's how
yeah,
we work. But my opinion is definitely getting skewed in the negative direction.
yeah. But let's talk about the scenarios here. If this gets knocked back a year, she's still going to be able to compete at the Olympic Games. If it's 2 years, she'll still get to defend her title at the World Championships. She's only 22 years old now, I believe. So I mean, this isn't going to be a complete robbery of her career, or the end of her career by any means. So we'll see what unfolds over the next couple of days. We'll see how solid or hollow her argument is. When she said she missed her flight, and therefore that's what triggered the final thing. We'll find out in the coming days and weeks exactly what the full scenario is, because of course we don't have all of the details. But interested to find out that this is going to be. She's had 2 missed tests, and then had an issue with her travel. So that provides that little bit of gray area where it's possible that this could all get wiped out.
Imagine this scenario, though, that she gets either the 1 or 2 year. So either she misses Tokyo or she doesn't miss Tokyo, right? People miss Olympics because they're just hurt. So you could just be like, oh, yeah,
No.
Whatever. She comes back after serving this 1 year or 2 year ban, and she's still making world finals, global finals, and she's still running 49 low, 48 high, and like wins medals
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. But she never gets even close to her previous personal best.
Yeah.
And then we're 10 years into her career. What will we be like? That performance is fake because she never
No,
got
no,
close to
of
it
course
again.
not. Because track for the most part, not always, but has a short memory. I mean, it's not popular enough for it to be like that big of a blown up thing. And let's get it out there. I mean, there are performances all the time that are just, your PR is just your massive outlier performance. And sometimes that just happens. It's not like Wade Van Niekerk's going to be running 43.0 every race of his life. It's just, there's a chance that that's the best race of her life. In fact, a pretty good chance based on history. So no, not necessarily, but a lot is going to depend on what unfolds over with the rest of this case.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
So once again, if you're Phyllis Francis, Jonathan, Allison Felix, like a U.S. 400-meter runner, what are you thinking right now? Or were you Shawnee Miller or Weibo? What are you thinking right now?
I think she's got to be thinking just like what we are. I got to wait to see more details, but we don't know her opinion of Naser. She probably thought I ran 48.3, and that wasn't good enough on the day. And that was a huge PR for Miller Weibo. So I'm sure in the back of her mind, she thought, man, is she really that good? Because Miller Weibo was unstoppable last year up until Doha. And I mean, the narrative on the ground there in Doha was, well, she just had a career race and that was it. But, you add on all these details, and I'm sure there's some behind the scenes stuff that Miller Weibo knows that maybe we don't, that I don't want to speak for her because I have no idea. But she's got to be thinking, is there a chance? Is there a chance I get upgraded to gold? Of course, she's an Olympic champion. So, I mean, a gold, she's already got her gold. You want as many golds as possible. But, it's not like this would necessarily change the arc of her career. She's already a massive superstar, but yeah, this obviously directly impacts her. I would say the chances, now seeing more of the details, the chances are small that we get reallocated medals. So I wouldn't, if I was Miller Weibo, be holding out too much hope. I know we talked about that earlier, but that was before we saw this tweet that indicated the other violation took place in 2020. I wouldn't be holding her breath, but I think she's got to be thinking there's at least a chance I don't have Salwa Eid Naser in my way when I'm going for gold in the 400 in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, what we have we have another guarding clash where Miller Weibo's husband will be competing in the decathlon. So maybe we can get her thoughts. Well,
yeah, I doubt that.
Her husband
seriously doubt that.
Taking a break between doing the pole vault and the shot put. We can ask Shauna, hey, what are your thoughts on what just happened? That would be real journalism if we can get that.
Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen over Skype or whatever they're using. But yeah, we'll hold out hope for that on whenever that is, Saturday or Sunday. But yeah, that's pretty much the news today. We were going to talk about, like we said at the top, going to talk about the simulating the women's NCAA Outdoor Championships. But this came across the Twitter wires, if you will, early today. So this was the big story. This has massive ramifications in the sport. And when there's not much going on, you get any tidbit of news, we can blow it way up and stretch it for almost an hour. So that's all we have for you today. Catch us back on Monday. This is the FloTrack Podcast. You can email us, flotrackpodcast@gmail.com. My name is Lincoln. He is Gordon, and we will see you next week.